Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something really fundamental in economics.
Huh?
How wages and jobs actually get decided. It sounds simple, but there's a twist, right?
There really is. It's one of those areas where the basic rules of supply and demand seem, well, flipped.
Flipped. Okay.
Our goal today is basically to give you the thinking process, how employers see it, and how workers like you see it too.
Right, because usually, like at the grocery store, I demand stuff, the store supplies it.
Exactly. But in the labor market, you, the worker, are actually the supplier. You're selling your time, your skills.
Ah, okay, so I'm selling my labor.
You are. And the businesses, they're the demanders. They're looking to buy that labor.
Got it. So the roles are completely reversed. That's the paradox.
That's the core idea to grasp right at the start.
Okay, so let's start with us, the workers, the suppliers. Usually, supply goes up when the price goes up. Does that work for labor too? If wages go up, do more people want to work?
Generally, yes. For the market as a whole, the labor supply curve does slope upwards.
Why is that?
It boils down to opportunity cost. Think about it. Every hour you work is an hour you could be doing something else.
Like studying or relaxing or family stuff.
Precisely. And some of those non-work activities are pretty valuable, right? So to convince you to give up more and more of that leisure time, the wage have to be higher. It compensates you for that loss.
Okay, let's try a quick example for,
Yeah.
for everyone listening. Imagine you need someone to, say, mow your lawn.
Okay.
How many people do you think would jump at the chance if you offered $5 an hour?
Probably not very many. The hassle just isn't worth $5 for most people. They'd rather do something else.
Right. But what if you offered $20 an hour?
Now you get more interest. People start thinking, okay, $20, that's worth giving up an hour of my Saturday.
It may be at $40 an hour.
Yeah.
Even more people.
Definitely. More people are willing to supply their labor because the compensation outweighs the value they place on their free time. Higher wage, higher quantity supplied. That's the upward slope.
All right. Now let's flip it. The demand side. The employers. Why does their demand curve slope down? Why do they want less labor as the wage goes up?
It's essentially the mirror image. Employers are looking at costs. If labor is cheap, they'll use more of it.
Think about hiring someone to help around the house, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, perfect example. If you could find someone reliable to cook and clean for, say, $5 an hour.
I'd probably have them work in a lot of hours, maybe organize everything I own.
Exactly. You demand a high quantity of labor. But if that same person costs $30 or $35 an hour.
Then probably much less, maybe just a couple of hours a week, if
Yeah.
that. The cost is too high.
So as the wage increases, the quantity of labor demanded by businesses decreases. That's the downward sloping demand curve.
And where these two curves cross, that's the sweet spot.
That's the market equilibrium. The intersection tells us the typical market wage for that type of job and how many people will likely be employed in it. Okay, so the market sets a wage, let's say $15 an hour for a barista. Now, if you're managing the coffee shop, you have to pay that wage. You can't really haggle.
Right. The market dictates the price.
So your decision isn't what to pay, but how many baristas to hire at that wage.
And that comes down to thinking at the margin, right? Should I hire one more person?
Exactly. It's all about marginal analysis. You compare the cost of one more worker to the benefit they bring in.
The cost seems easy enough. It's just the wage, right? $15 in this case.
That's the marginal cost, yes. The cost of one additional unit of labor is simply the wage.
Okay, so what's the benefit side? How do you measure that?
Well, first you look at what that extra worker actually produces. How many more coffees can they make per hour? That's the marginal product of labor, or MPL, the extra output.
But the shop owner doesn't care about coffees directly. They
Right.
care about money, revenue.
Precisely. So you take that marginal product, the extra coffees, and multiply it by the price of each coffee, let's say $3. That gives you the marginal revenue product, or MRP.
Ah, okay. So if the extra barista makes, say, 6 extra coffees an hour, and they sell for $3 each, the MRP is $18.
Correct. That extra worker generates $18 in additional revenue per hour.
And the cost was $15.
So should you hire them?
Yes, definitely. The benefit, $18, is more than the cost, $15.
Absolutely. And that leads us straight to the rational rule for employers. Keep hiring more workers as long as the marginal revenue product is greater than or equal to the wage.
You stop hiring when the next worker would cost more than the revenue they generate.
That's how you maximize profits. Simple as that.
Okay. That makes sense for one manager. But why does the market demand curve slope down? You mentioned it earlier, but connect it back to this marginal thinking.
It connects directly back to something called diminishing marginal product.
Diminishing returns, basically.
Exactly. Think about that coffee shop again. The first barista you hire has the whole place to themselves. Very productive. The second one helps. Maybe they specialize. The third, still good.
But the fourth or fifth?
They start bumping into each other, waiting for the espresso machine, maybe chatting a bit more. The additional output each new worker provides their marginal product starts to fall.
So the marginal revenue product also falls.
Right. And since the MRP is falling, you're only willing to hire those less productive additional workers if the wage you have to pay is also lower. That relationship, lower wage needed to hire more workers because their MRP is falling, is the downward sloping demand curve.
Got it. That makes sense. Now, what makes the whole demand curve shift? Like, what makes employers want more workers at every wage?
Great question. One major factor is what we call derived demand.
Derived, meaning it comes from something else.
Exactly. The demand for workers is derived from the demand for the product they make. If suddenly everyone wants gourmet coffee, the price of coffee goes up. That higher price boosts the marginal revenue product of every barista. Remember, MRP is MPL times price. So if price goes up, MRP goes up.
Which means at the old wage of $15, hiring another barista is now even more profitable.
Correct. So the coffee shop owner wants to hire more baristas. The entire demand curve for baristas shifts to the right. More demand for the final product leads to more demand for the labor that makes it.
Okay, derived demand. What else shifts labor demand? Technology must be a big one. Robots, automation.
Huge. And this is where it gets really interesting and often debated. Technology can affect labor demand in two opposing ways.
Opposing ways. How?
Well, first, there's the obvious one, the substitution effect. New technology, like a self-checkout kiosk or a robot arm, can do the job a person used to do.
So the machine substitutes for the worker.
Right. And if the machine is cheaper or more efficient, demand for the human worker goes down. That's the robots taking jobs narrative.
But you said there's another effect.
Yes, the scale effect. Sometimes technology makes the whole business so much more efficient or allows it to produce things it couldn't before that the business expands.
Expands, like grows bigger.
Exactly. Think about, say, cheaper, better construction equipment. Yes, maybe one machine replaces a few laborers doing manual digging substitution.
Okay.
But because the equipment makes building so much cheaper and faster, the construction company can now take on way more projects. They need more people to operate the new equipment, more project managers, more designers. The overall scale of the operation increases.
I see. So the technology complements some workers, making them more productive, and the company needs more of those workers because it's growing.
Precisely. The cheaper capital allows the firm to scale up, potentially increasing demand for certain types of labor, even if it decreases demand for others.
So are robots good or bad for jobs? It sounds like the answer is.
It depends. It really does depend. It depends on whether the technology primarily substitutes for labor or enables a scale effect that complements labor. Often it does both simultaneously for different types of workers. It can reduce demand for low-skill tasks, but increase demand for high-skill tasks like operating or maintaining the tech. All right, let's switch gears completely now. Back to the worker's perspective. How do you decide how many hours to work?
Okay, so I'm the supplier of my time.
You are, and every hour you spend working is an hour you can't spend doing something else. Economists lump all that non-work time into one category.
Leisure. Leisure sounds nice, but you mean everything else, right? Family, hobbies, errands, even sleeping.
Everything that isn't paid work. So the core decision is how to allocate your fixed amount of time, 24 hours a day, between labor and leisure.
And there's a rational rule for this, too.
There is. The rational rule for workers is you should work an additional hour as long as the wage you receive for that hour is at least as large as the marginal benefit you get from one more hour of leisure.
The benefit of leisure. How do you even measure that? It's not like leisure pays me.
You measure it by how much you value it. What's that extra hour of sleep worth to you? Or playing with your kids? Or studying for an exam?
Yeah.
You implicitly weigh the wage against that value.
Okay. So if the wage is high enough, it convinces me to give up that leisure hour.
Right. But here's where it gets counterintuitive. Does a higher wage always make people want to work more hours?
My first instinct is yes. More money, more work.
That's the substitution effect at play. A higher wage makes work relatively more attractive compared to leisure. The opportunity cost of not working goes up. So you substitute away from leisure and towards work.
That makes sense. If my boss offers me double time, I'm probably more likely to stay late.
Exactly. That effect is strong, especially at lower wage levels. But there's another force working in the opposite direction.
Which is,
The income effect. A higher wage doesn't just change the relative price of work and leisure, it also makes you richer overall.
okay, yeah, higher wage means more income.
And what do people typically do when they have more income? They buy more of the things they like. Economists call these normal goods.
Like nicer food, bigger house.
And leisure. Leisure is generally considered a normal good. As you get wealthier, you want to consume more leisure, take more vacations, work fewer hours, retire earlier.
Ah, so the higher wage gives me the means to afford more time off.
Precisely. The income effect of a higher wage encourages you to work less.
So you have two effects pushing in opposite directions.
Mhm.
Substitution says work more, income says work less. Which one wins?
It depends on the wage level and individual preferences. Let's try that example again. Suppose your wage goes from $5 an hour to $15 an hour.
Okay.
At that level, the substitution effect is probably dominant. The extra money per hour is a big deal. You likely work more hours to take advantage of it.
Makes sense.
Now imagine your wage is already high, say $100 an hour. You're making maybe $4,000 a week working full time. What happens if it goes up to $120 an hour?
Well, the extra $20 is nice, but I'm already earning a lot. Maybe. Maybe I decide I don't need the extra money as much as I'd like an extra day off now and then.
Exactly. At very high wage levels, the income effect can start to dominate the substitution effect. You might think, I've reached a comfortable income level. I'll use this raise to buy back some of my time.
So you actually work fewer hours even though the wage went up.
It can happen for individuals. This leads to the famous idea of the backward-bending individual labor supply curve. As wages get really high, the curve can actually bend back on itself.
Wow. Okay, that definitely goes against the simple higher price, higher quantity idea.
It does for an individual. But remember earlier we said the market supply curve is always upward sloping.
Right. Why doesn't the market curve bend backward if individuals' curves can?
Because the market supply isn't just about existing workers changing their hours slightly, it's mainly driven by the extensive margin.
Extensive margin, what's that?
It means people entering or leaving the workforce or switching between occupations. 3 things happen when, say, nurses' wages go way up.
Okay. Well,
1, existing nurses might work a few more hours, maybe pick up extra shifts. That's the intensive margin influenced by those income and substitution effects.
2.
Some people who weren't working before, maybe students just graduating, or people who were stay-at-home parents, decide to enter the nursing profession because the pay is now attractive.
Okay, new entrants.
And 3, and this is often the biggest factor, people switch jobs. You might have people leaving lower-paying healthcare roles, or even teaching or administrative jobs, and retraining to become nurses because the wage signal is so strong.
Ah, so the higher wage pulls people in from other sectors or from outside the labor force entirely.
Exactly. That flow of people into the occupation when wages rise ensures the overall market supply curve keeps sloping upwards, even if some high-earning individuals within it decide to work a bit less.
That makes a lot of sense. Wages act like signals directing people where their labor is most needed or valued.
Absolutely. And of course, when people make those big career choices, they're looking at more than just the hourly wage.
Right, things like benefits, insurance, retirement plans.
Definitely. Also, the career path is the room for growth. How stable is the job? Do they have a particular skill or comparative advantage for it? What are the actual working conditions and hours like? It's a whole package. ## outro. So let's recap the core ideas we've dived into. First, that crucial flip in the labor market. Workers supply, businesses demand.
Got it. Suppliers and demanders are switched.
Second, the 2 key rational rules. For employers, hire as long as the marginal revenue product is greater than or equal to the wage.
And for workers,
Yeah,
work as long as the wage is greater than or equal to the value of your leisure time.
exactly. And third, those conflicting forces on workers. The substitution effect pulling you towards more work at higher wages, and the income effect potentially pulling you towards less work, especially when you're already earning a lot.
Understanding those rules really gives you a lens to look at, well, almost everything related to jobs and the economy. News about automation, wage debates, industry booms or busts.
It provides a framework you can ask. Okay, how does this event affect the demand for labor? Does it shift the curve right or left? How does it affect the supply of labor? And what does that imply for wages and employment levels?
It helps make sense of the headlines.
It does. So here's a final thought for you to take away, building on that technology discussion. We know technology, especially automation and AI, The price of capital is getting cheaper and cheaper.
Seems inevitable.
So think about the long run. For the next generation entering the workforce, which type of labor is likely to be more economically stable and valuable? Labor that primarily competes with that falling price of capital, acting as a substitute. Or labor that works with that technology, that complements it, making both the tech and the worker more productive together. Something to consider for your own career path.
Definitely food for thought. That wraps up our deep dive